Hi guys, welcome back to another video of ours. Welcome to the channel if you are new. If you are new, my name is Elise and this is Sean, and we come on here quite frequently to talk about how we bought our first home, how we got on the property market, got a mortgage, all things house related. So if you are in the process of buying your first home or have lots of questions about that, then definitely do think about hitting subscribe. If you are new, then Sean actually owned a flat before and he was part of the shared ownership scheme. We thought we'd do a video based on the positives and the negatives to buying a shared ownership property. We have had quite a lot of questions sent over to us on Instagram about the shared ownership scheme and is it worth it and do you get this and do you get that. So we thought we'd try and cover some of those points today.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like the idea of shared ownership, don't they?
Yeah.
But there's lots of unknowns, lots of things people are worried about. So it's just a good idea to see our pros and our cons. I think it might help people.
So the first point we've written down under the positives is it really does help you get onto that property ladder.
I mean, that's the main aim of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It gets you on the property ladder when you otherwise wouldn't have been able to. The best positive of it is the main reason for it, it's the reason it helps people.
That's the whole point the scheme was created. It's to get you on the property ladder because properties, especially in the UK, are not cheap. They've gone up and up and up every single year.
So the second positive is it gets you into a property that you might not have been able to get into originally.
Definitely.
So me, for example, I was living in London, I was looking at what I could buy, and there was this really nice shed in Croydon. It didn't have windows, it didn't have a door, you had to climb in the top. That was 200 grand, so that was, what I could afford. However, getting a shared ownership property, it got me into a 2-bed, 2-bath, really nice size flat in Surrey. I wouldn't have been able to afford it beforehand. It gets you into a nicer property. Your sister as well, I know she used a different scheme, but she had a young family. The scheme that she used got her into a big family home, or otherwise, that might have been 5 years away if she didn't use a scheme.
So the third positive we've got is that it does earn you money like owning any property. It will likely go up, fingers crossed, in value. You will get more equity on it, and it's the same with shared ownership, although it is shared. And the amounts, I think, when you go your separate ways, if you were to move out of the flat, it is shared within the equity, but you would still have, you would still have a little bit of money in your pocket, hopefully, to move forward onto your next property.
I had a 55% share, so the profit that it made, I got 55% of it, and it was still in the tens of thousands.
Which you never would have got if you weren't in that property and you were renting. No. Would you have had that amount of savings in your pocket?
Not at all. And you're paying towards your mortgage, aren't you? So you're still earning money on that mortgage, effectively.
True.
The equity is still building.
Yeah, good point.
So next positive, and this is from my experience, is it was very easy to get signed up. The whole scheme, easy to get set up, easy to do it. I just signed up on a website, I did a few bits and bobs to prove I live where I need to do, etc, and that was it, job done. Buying any home, I'm sure you're going to speak to 100 people who had a really bad experience, but from my experience, the scheme itself was very easy to get on, very easy to use. Yeah,
straightforward, self-explanatory, everything's there to help.
Yeah.
So the next positive we've got is there are lots of properties and investors and builders that do shared ownership, so it is widely available to you here, especially here in the UK. I can't obviously vouch for other countries, but it's not like it just in certain areas within the UK they do shared ownership and other areas don't. It should be easily accessible for you. I know pretty much most new builds offer like a shared ownership.
Yeah, shared ownership quadrant, isn't there?
Yeah,
on our new build. I was searching predominantly southeast, but they were everywhere. The chances are wherever you live, there's going to be a shared ownership property available, because the last thing you want is a great government scheme, but there's not the actual properties for it.
Yeah.
So another really good positive to it is you need a lower deposit, lower percentage owned in the property, lower deposit. So if you can imagine, if you need to save 30 grand for a property, how much quicker is it to save 15 grand? Half the time.
Yeah, less money required to just initially get you in, which I think is always going to be such an attractive point of the shared ownership scheme.
Especially if there's two of you. Can you imagine, we've got to save 30 grand or whatever, making up the numbers, but then, okay, well, we actually have to save 15 between us, 7.5 each. That seems so much more, doesn't make your head explode. The dream seems so much more realistic.
Attainable, sorry, is the right word. Yeah, definitely. So the next positive that we've got is that you only pay stamp duty on your share. So like, just as an example, for our house, when we first moved in, we were saving, and I think the stamp duty can sometimes really kill you off. Luckily, we bartered the stamp duty to be included in our mortgage with the buyers of this property, with the investors. So obviously you're only going to be paying stamp duty on your share. So if it's like a 55% share, you're only going to be paying stamp duty on that rather than the full costing of the house.
And it adds right up, doesn't it? Even if that stamp duty is cut in half, you know, that's still thousands and thousands of pounds. So I think it's a really good benefit. And our last positive before we move on to the negatives is the ability to staircase. So you start with your share and you build up until you eventually get the property.
That's
it's a
really
much
nice, isn't it?
quicker route to getting that property if you staircase. So I have my 55% share. Before I met Elise, I was looking into staircasing up to 75%. At that point, my rent would have come down, my mortgage would have went up, and then the step after that obviously would be having the whole thing. If you think about the stage of my life, when I bought it, the flat was worth 250 grand or whatever. You know, the time it would have took me to save to get into a 250 grand house, rather than shared ownership and staircasing into it at that time, you know, it would have saved me years and years and years. And then you're off the scheme, you know, you own it 100%, all the negatives effectively go. Really good positive.
So moving on to the negatives, the first negative that we've written down is that you do have to pay rent alongside paying your mortgage. So although your mortgage will be much less than obviously if you own the full property, it's kind of like you feel like you're paying two sets of bills ultimately, because you've got your mortgage and your rent.
Yeah, it is annoying. I mean, you own a property and you're still paying rent. There's no getting around it. It is a bit of a kick in the teeth.
I remember when you told me what your mortgage was a month, and I was like, oh, that's really good, that's really, and you were like, no, but then I've got to pay X amount in rent, and I was like, Yeah, we did actually recently just record a shared ownership bills, what it cost a month and how much it cost in total and things. So if you do want to check that out, I will link it up here, which we just recorded last week, so definitely check that out. It gives you a bit more insight to the figures without going into too much detail about it here.
So another negative is you are bound by more rules than you would be if you just owned the property.
Yeah,
you know, for example, you know, if you wanted to get some work done to the flat or the house or whatever, you know, there's someone else involved who could say no, as in the local government. But also things at the end. So we had some real stupid rules whereby the local authority who dealt with the shared ownership, I had to use their estate agent to start with, and I just fought and said, no, that is absolutely ridiculous, because your estate agents suck. You should have seen their website, it was terrible. But, you know, just more rules. It just gets a bit annoying.
So our next negative, and it is kind of like a counterpoint to our positive where we said that you can like gain money and earn money. You will also lose a bit of money, I guess, when you go to sell, because even though the property's maybe made equity, you do have to share your profit.
Yeah, so the house goes up 30 grand, you don't get all of it. Again, it's sort of part of the course, isn't it, really?
It sounds rubbish, but I feel like it really helped you out.
Really sorted me out when it came to this house, because a lot of the money, that the flat made, we reinvested back into this. But, you know, I can't lie and say it wasn't quite annoying at the end where I think, wow, this, because it was still my flat, you know, my flat has gone up all this money and I've only effectively made half from it.
If you're living at your mum and dad's, for example, think about, would you really have gained yourself, I don't know, £15,000 in the space of what, how long were you in that flat? 2.5 years. £15,000 of savings, like it's still a decent amount, as well as you paying into a mortgage that's going to be then carried forward onto your next property. So
as well as your regular savings, because you still save out of your wage
hopefully.
Month.
So it's a bit of an annoying fact, but something to bear in mind.
So another negative is there's fewer lenders in the market, so I think I had two options out of all the banks in this country. There was only two who offered, you know, give me a price effectively, and I think that hurt a few people I was speaking to who were looking at the scheme at the time. So it's not a case of, you know, going to a mortgage broker and, you know, you got 100 different lenders who will provide, you know, it's much more limited. And the next negative to shared ownership, and one which really ground my gears, I mean, I couldn't get over it, is the fact that you have to pay 100% of the maintenance charge and the council tax, despite them taking a 50% cut of the profit at the end. They don't chip in where they don't want, but they take what they do want. Very annoying. How little they contribute, despite the fact it is a shared ownership. So like we said a minute ago, you sell the property, they take their share, you take your share, great. But when it comes to the maintenance charge for the property or the council tax, they don't chip into that. There's something about that, it's always annoying. I can never get over that.
Yeah, it is annoying. I did say to you, didn't I? I remember saying like, oh, but like if something that needs fixing, like surely if you own 55%, they have to pay the rest, but the cheaper bank is just a no one to be seen. Yeah, it's your responsibility. So another negative, that at any point they can change their rates, they can raise their rates, so your rent could go up. I'm not sure if that would have to be formally given by a written notice that's done within, like, I don't know, 4, 6, 8 weeks, but just check something to factor in, because it could really sting you. It
might have been yearly, you know, so at the end of the year it raised, but you know, all of a sudden 1 month I was paying, it wasn't loads, but still like 20 quid or something. I think it was 25 quid more for the rent, which is just why. So
another negative to the shared ownership scheme is that when buying, you do have to be living and working in that area of which you're looking to buy a property in.
I found a bit of a loophole, is in I worked in field sales. So
oh, okay.
I technically did. I covered Surrey, I covered London,
area.
I covered, you know, all the way down to Brighton. So I said, well, I do work in the area. You know, at the time I was selling, you know, light into hospitals right down the road. So and that got me through. But it was you know, it was by areas. So a lot of people might live right on the edge of a different county. You know, so for example, Hampshire, West Sussex. If you live and work in West Sussex, but you found a shared ownership property which is 5 minutes away in a town in Hampshire.
Yeah, you probably
at the time you wouldn't have been accepted.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if
it might have
if
changed
they got,
it.
you know,
yeah.
a bit more flexible, but you know, it's quite annoying. So our last negative to the shared ownership scheme is no negotiation on price when selling. When you sell your house, you just, you know, the estate agent comes in and you know, basically put their finger in the air and go, right, let's just sell this for $500,000, whatever, and you go from there. Whereas with the shared ownership, they get in a real quantified surveyor. He comes in and he tells you what the price is, and that's it. So
yeah, there's no budging, or like if, like you say, an estate agent says to us, oh, we say 500,000, but we're like, oh, we want to push for an extra 20 grand. Yeah, you just can't add that on.
So if David Beckham come and said, look, I love your flat, I want to buy it off you for £2 million, I have none of it. It's just so annoying. But but then, you know, it kind of, it helps the scheme. Because at the beginning you do benefit from that, I guess, because, you know, there's no mess around. I mean, you hear horror stories of you put in a bid and then it's accepted and then it's not accepted and they want more money and it gets annoying. Yeah,
it kind of protects you in a way, doesn't it? Because it just is what it is, rather than it like, I don't know, someone trying to mug you off and be like, oh no, I'm only willing to pay this amount or whatever. It does kind of protect you, but it is also, it does kind of limit you, but it's just part of the shared ownership scheme.
Every person when they sell their property thinks, I can get a bit more for this.
Yeah, because everyone, it's like everyone thinking their child's like well ahead of other people's children. Like they're really clever. Yeah. Well guys, that is everything from the shared ownership video of our like pros and cons to buying the shared ownership scheme. Obviously everyone's circumstances are different, but if it is something you're thinking about, we hope this video has been helpful. If there's anything that we didn't cover or you'd like us to speak about, always ping us a message on Instagram or message us below on the video. Leave a comment and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. But that is it for today. I hope you've enjoyed today's video and we will see you in the next one very, very soon. Bye.